Good morning, world. It's about 6:30 in the morning, Thursday, August 4th, 2022. I got the best parking spot you could imagine. Got all the rigs out here, and behind the safety of the concrete barricade, we're back here. There's a couple guys sleeping out in the field out there. Doesn't look like near as much fun. But yeah, this is working out good. I got up before 6. I was walking across the parking lot as the sun was coming up, and then my phone died, so I didn't get the shot. So yeah, anyway. Let's see, making a couple quick changes. The carabiners here used to be across between here, and I would hang the army cot on the side. And now when I fold it up, I'm going to try it on this side. I've been thinking about that for a couple months, it seems like, but I just never did it. Because it's like the army cot is wider when it's folded up than the wheel is. Even it sticks out past the wheel. I've had a couple times where I've hit something with it. So it's going to stick out a little bit on one side anyway, but it'd be a lot easier to put it in there. Because one of the things I've been looking at, I'm trying to stuff it through here, so I'm always pulling stuff back, and all my wires are right there. And I've snagged the wires a couple times, so it's like, yeah, eventually you're gonna break it and you gotta stop and fix it. So out here, it's completely out in the open, so that should be fine. Yeah. Next time I find another, because I'm finding bungee straps on the side of the road all the time. So I've got one mattress pad or bed pad there. And then that one I found on the side of the road. And I was like, okay, I'm not really using them, but they don't weigh anything, so I might as well take them home with me. And they aren't thick enough to really sleep on comfortably. So when it was cold, I'd put them on the army cot, and that insulated the bottom of me. That was way more comfortable because the cold air underneath you'd feel through the sleeping bag. But I don't really use them now, so it's just one more thing I'd have to roll up. So yeah, it's like, hey, look at that, exactly like the one I've got already. So yeah, anyway, a little bit of breakfast. I'm gonna go fill up my water bottle at the drinking fountain, and we'll be good to go. I'm gonna try to leave as early as I can. Denver is within a day's ride of here, so if I can work it right, I'll either, we'll see which way it goes. I'm going to try to get through Denver today. That'll be a pretty good ride. But right now, conditions are just outstanding. I don't have any wind, no clouds, and I've got 49 volts on the battery, so I got plenty to get started on. So should be fine. Hit the road and get on out of here. I haven't specifically looked at my route. I might just go on 25 though. That'll be faster. I'm gonna look at what I got left for food. I think I can skip today. I was gonna hit the Walmart here, but I think I'm good. And I'll look for a Walmart when I get to Denver and stock up on bananas and bagels again. Yeah, I slept really good. It's like mosquitoes were a bit of a problem, so I slept with my toque on, and I pulled my neck gaiter up over my face, and then I was fine. There's my shadow way over there. I don't know if that shows up or not. Anyway, yeah, life is good. Pack it up and hit the road. Alright, 7:45, ready to roll. Right on the edge of the shadow. I can't really see it on the viewfinder. I get too many fingerprints. Oh, little bunny just started running away at the sidewalk. There he goes. Just a little reminder of home, I guess. Doesn't know which way he wants to run. There he gets out on the sidewalk. Alright, little bunny. There we go. About 80 miles looks like, so it'll be a stretch. Okay, a random awkward moment here. This is world headquarters for Sparkfun.
which is a pretty cool 3D or electronics DIY kind of a company. You can buy all kinds of cool stuff like Arduinos, and they have some of their own boards that they make. And side note, I'm pretty sure that the radar altimeter or the laser rangefinder or something from the Mars rover came from these guys. Yeah. When I lived in Austin about 5 years ago, I won a 3D printer from here. So as I'm riding along, I started thinking Sparkfun is in the area somewhere, but I couldn't remember where. So I Googled it really quick. Oh, it's actually within 5 miles of where I was going as far as my route. So took a detour, come up here, front door, access restricted. So I kind of just looking around and I see a guy on the sidewalk. Hey, is Sparkfun here? Or blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh yeah, he just scans the door and lets me in and then walks away. And I'm like, okay, awkward, you know. And I go walking in and it's like, I'm like, there's nobody here. Look around, finally I find the production floor where they're filling orders and stuff and scare the crap out of some poor girl and wearing her headset. So anyway, I said hi and then realized that they weren't really set up for visitors walking in. So quietly left and said thank you. So here we are. If I ever do this kind of thing again, I only could think that they were in Colorado somewhere, so I didn't think about it till this morning. But I don't know, if I would have emailed ahead of time, maybe somebody would have said hey, you know. But anyway, forward and onward. We are south of Loveland. If I make better time than I have been so far, I'll probably make it to the south side of Denver today. I don't have any specific area. I kind of put a mark on a couple of whatchamacallits, like not rest areas but parks with restrooms, so we'll see how we do there. But anyway, we came, we saw, now we're leaving. Yeah, they don't have any retail here at all. It's like you couldn't walk in and buy something. It had to be online orders. All right, moving on. All right, we'll call this the end of day probably report. Hang on. All right, it's about 5 o'clock on August 4th, 2022. I'm gonna call it the end of day report. Part 2, yeah, there we go. So I am on the south side of Boulder, Colorado. I did 57 miles today, plus a little bit. The more direct route was 57 miles. So what happened was, see if I can set that. I think that'll stay there. Nope. Oh, there we go. Yes! No expense has been spared on production value here. I think I got the place to myself now. About 15 younger people, big kids, couple parents, I don't know. Mountain bikes just come rolling through here, so I think they're all safely out of the way now. Yeah. So I'm on the south side of Boulder. I am at a trailhead, which officially closes at 10 o'clock or 10:30 or something like that. But there is 2 porta potties here and some parking and a few cars and a bunch of people on bikes that went by. Not much for shelter, very little for trees except for this one right here and one over there that I'm getting a little bit of shade from. I got the bike parked up in a normal legal parking spot. Well, picking up 2 spots because it's parked sideways trying to catch some sun. So the first part today, I didn't plan this in the beginning, but I started thinking about it. There's the video that I shot at Sparkfun. They are an electronics company that sells parts that you can use for making your DIY projects, robots and whatever. I use a lot of things like Raspberry Pis on the ranch because they use very little power, so it's a nice little computer system that can also interface with, like an example, you can hook up servos to it and program it with the computer and make a little robot that does a dance or, you know, that kind of stupid things. So it's a lot of parts that let you combine software and hardware to make projects. Okay, so I was just kind of thinking about it last night and today. It's like they're in Colorado somewhere, but I couldn't remember exactly where. It was a town that I'd never heard of before, and I'd never really taken the time to look it up on Google to see what town it's close to. But I thought, well, it'd be kind of fun, you know, just to see where they're at, And in my mind, I'm like, oh, this will be great. I can, walk in and there'll be a receptionist and I'll say, hey, I'm a long-time customer, first-time visitor. I'd just like to see the place because I buy so much stuff from here, And of course, I'm not in the top 1 million on their customer list, I'm sure, for money spent. But anyway, I just thought, say, hey, I'm here. I just want to say hi. And, then I could tell them that I had won a $2,000 3D printer from them one time, and I just wanted to say thanks. I figured that would be about it. Well, I get there, and the main looking front door says no entry, no public access. I'm like, oh, now I'm kind of bummed because I hadn't even really thought about it. But they're basically an internet only company. They don't do walk-in retail. Okay, fine. And I'm like, well, I just kind of figured I'd walk around the side and just see if see if anybody was around. And I happened to see a guy come walking out. I'm like, hey, is this where they are? Sparkfun. And oh yeah. I'm like, hey, I just wanted to say hey. Okay, so he turns around, walks me back to the door that he came out of, swipes his access card, opens the door, just waves me in, and he goes back on his break. And I'm like, okay, that's a little weird. So I just figured I would get in and there would be somebody else there. No, I walk around for a few minutes. It's like I find a break room, I find the restrooms, I find, they got a spot on the wall where they all hang their bicycles. I thought that was kind of cool. I had actually seen that in one of the videos. Spoke spot is what they call it. So they got all their bikes hung up on racks. Apparently a lot of them either ride their bikes to work or have their bikes at work for taking breaks on. Not really sure. Either one is possible. Anyway, turn a couple more corners and I finally get out on kind of the production floor where they're doing order filling, and I think they do actual manufacturing on site too. Pretty sure they do. So I find a young lady sitting there at her workstation, and she had her headphones on. I almost had to reach up and touch her to get her attention. Scared the crap out of her because she's listening to her stuff, and I'm like, hey, I realize this isn't a public place, but the other guy let me in, and I'm like, is there anybody I can say hey, or is there a receptionist or whatever? And she's like, no, not really, and wait here. And she walks over and finds another guy, and he comes over, and they didn't really seem impressed that I was there. So I was like, yeah, this isn't going quite the way I expected. I thought it'd be a lot more fun. So yeah, I said my piece, and I didn't even get a chance to really say who I was or anything like that. I'm like, okay, well, thanks, bye, sorry for bothering you, I can see you're busy. And that was it. So it was like, well, I on the spur of the moment, I just figured I'd go find the place, and I kind of thought that might be the case. It wasn't like there was going to be a whole bunch of people just waiting around to greet random customers. So I had hoped, though, I don't know, it would have been kind of cool if I could have talked to somebody about maybe sponsorship for the next year, because I'm doing some electronic stuff on the bike, and if I could have got some parts from them. And I was like, I kept thinking, I don't have anything on the bike that I bought from them. And I was kind of like, well, that was, if I could have said, man, look at this thing that I did, on my solar powered electric bike. I think some of the guys would have thought that was cool if it wasn't so random that I just showed up, right? That was kind of what I was like, okay, hey, I'm a customer and I showed up here on a solar powered electric bike. That might have been kind of cool, except I didn't, it was like none of my parts were from there. And then about like an hour ago, I'm like, well, duh, my flashing light used their parts, right? I mean, of all the random things, but that's something, but I couldn't remember that. So then I was like, well, okay, another opportunity wasted. Anyway, if I had got my goal of about 80 miles today, I would have been on the south side of Denver. I'm kind of working around the west side of kind of trying to go around Denver without going through the middle of it, which the entire experience has been really annoying and slow. This is what happens every time I get to a bigger city. I just don't want to deal with it, right? Oh, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, another 12 people on mountain bikes going by. Officially, e-bikes are not allowed here in the park, so I figure if I'm parking with the cars, that's okay, but I'm not going to take my trailer on their little trail anyway. It looks like a really fun hiking trail, which would be wonderful on a properly set up mountain bike that didn't have 50 pounds of batteries on it and stuff. So I really wouldn't even want to take the bike on there because you go bouncing over a bunch of stuff. I've got enough trouble with the sidewalks here. Yeah, anyway, so from this morning, I was kind of like, well, okay, my local contacts that I met last night, a couple guys living in their cars that are frequently in random rest areas and parks throughout the day. I was like, okay, you know, nice guys. And this is one of the things that really kind of is a wake-up call on this trip is one guy had mad skills. He had been an aircraft mechanic in Vietnam for civilian agencies, and you know, he started rattling off stuff, and as you know, I'm like, okay, I spoke the language, so it's like I doubted he made up most of it. You know, I pick up on stuff he'd say. I'm like, oh yeah, I've seen that, or I knew that, and it wasn't like he knew my background enough to try to fool me or anything. So yeah, you know, so this guy's got mad skills. Now he's living in his car. He's, you know, basically retired or at that age, you know, and he's like, you know, doesn't have a house anymore, or just stuff fell apart. And then his other friend, they both seemed reasonably sharp. They didn't seem like just a couple of derelicts. You know, they're older guys that they're pretty happy that they had a car. The other guy, one guy had an old station wagon, like an Outback. The other guy had his pickup with a camper shell in the back and his dog, you know, and they were talking about they're doing online courses to try to get some more skills and to do something. And it's just like, yeah, you know. Yeah, and the one guy, man, he'd lived a good life, he said. He was like, you know, he was a trumpet player. He used to go down to New Orleans and play in bands, and he had a good enough resume he could just walk up and tell them who he was, and they'd bring him on for a few sets, and he'd make money on the spot kind of thing, you know. It's like, that's pretty cool. And, you know, so he had all these different things that he'd done, and yeah, and then he's living in his car, you know. Yeah. I do gotta say two things on that. I'm glad I did pay off the land and I got a house. Not that I'm necessarily tied to it, but learning to camp and learning to live, I'm not living off the land, you know, so that's one issue. But the fact that, you know, if I had a tarp, I'd be completely set for pretty much everything, you know, and that's easy to find. You know, I'm so used to living off of my bike now anyway that I just pick up and move if I need to. Not a big deal, you know. And so anyway, it is kind of a scary wake-up call where, you know, these guys had skills. You know, they weren't just, you know, your mental cases that you think of when you think of homeless people. It's kind of scary. So anyhow, what I was going to start saying was they had rattled off some ideas for, like, you know, instead of going down the interstate through Denver, which I was like, yeah. My thought was, where was I? St. George, Utah. It was one of the places I was like coming through the town, and then you get on the interstate, but if you get on the interstate too soon, you end up dealing with on-ramps and off-ramps, and in a city area, that's really scary. Out in the middle of, you know, between cities, there isn't as many on-ramps, and on-ramps are really tough to merge when you're on a bicycle because the cars are coming at 80 miles an hour, and you're sitting there at 12 miles an hour trying to go faster, and you can't turn your head far enough back to see them at that speed and then figure out if they're going to turn or not, and it's kind of scary. So in a city, there's so many on-ramps that you just try to avoid the whole thing. So I was like, okay, for today, let me not mess with that. Let me just go kind of around surface streets, kind of to miss the bigger parts. And then some of these roads I was on are like secondary highways or something like that, 4 lanes, and, you know, 50, 60, 70 mile an hour speed limits on them. And I was like, shit, I might as well just be on the freeway, you know. Yeah, anyways, I was getting to the point, it's just frustrating. It's like you're going in town, you're not making the miles. I was really surprised I did 57 today again. So I was like, okay, that's better than I thought. I felt like I did 30 or something like that. So it's like, well, I still made my 50. So now I can reset, and I'm halfway through. So I'm not going to stop on the edge of Denver now. I can just keep motoring. I'm gonna have to think, do I need anything from Walmart, or can I push to the next one, kind of thing, because there's a whole bunch of Walmarts around here, so I wouldn't have to go very far out of my way. But you know, if I have sunrise here at 6 again, and now I'm parked, so I'll get 2 or 3 hours of charge, although it's getting cloudy again. That's the thing. Yeah, the weather hasn't been super, it's not terrible, but you know, if you park and you get the bike aimed towards the sun, but it's right into a cloud bank, you get half of the sun that you would have gotten, kind of thing. So I don't know, I think I'm just kind of cranky because it was hot today. I got dehydrated. I stopped and bought 2 gallons of water, so I'm a little kind of catching up now, but I was running out of water. It's just so annoying going through civilization on that, especially that bike. You know, it's like you're dragging the trailer, everything's kind of just wrong. If you're on the highway, it's relatively smooth. If you're on the surface streets, you're dealing with curbs and bumps that you don't deal with out in the open. And then you get into like the last few miles, I just ended up going on the sidewalk and, you know, the bike trail, which is, oh man, what a joke. I hate bike trails. You know, if you're trying to go somewhere, but it's like the bike trail, it's like you got the street and then you got a sidewalk and then you got a bike trail and you're going up and down every sidewalk and curb and merging with traffic that's coming across and not looking for you. And it's easier to ride in the traffic, but there was so little shoulder because there is they gave you a bike trail, so now get off the street is basically the attitude, you know. And I get a lot of people honking and stuff. And then I started having trouble with the trailer hitch. This has been an ongoing thing, so I'm trying to fine tune it a little bit. And it's just, the trailer hitch isn't made for the amount of load I have, and so it's when it works itself loose, it ends up just popping the wheel right off the back of the bike. It's just, the whole thing isn't made for that. So yeah, the sooner I can get rid of the trailer entirely, it might be better, you know. But I'm like, okay, I'm in traffic, I'm ready to merge, you know, do a left-hand turn. I go to pedal really hard, and all of a sudden I feel a drag, and I'm like, oh, I just knocked the wheel out right out of the dropouts, you know, which is about half a second from the chain jamming up in the wheel and just completely jamming everything up. And you're like, no, and I'm like, oh, this car behind me is going to run over me because he's got no idea what I'm doing, and I'm like frantically trying to grab it and get it out of traffic, you know. It's like, this is not the way it's supposed to be. So knowing I was looking at these trailheads here, the first one was a mile further back, and I'm like, oh, there's a trailhead, that'll be a spot that you can pull off, and there's, you know, people are parked. You're not supposed to camp here, but, you know, there's starting to be a homeless problem here in Colorado too, and so they're like, well, you're not supposed to camp, but where else are you going to go? So maybe they'll just not mess with you, kind of thing. You know, this morning when I woke up at the last rest stop, you look around and, you know, some of these guys I was talking to, they'd be there every night, you know. They'd all have their favorite place, you know. And I realized I was in their spot when I got there, because I got there ahead of them. And, you know, they would go somewhere else and then they'd come back, right? And be like, oh, sorry, you know. So I'd like, I'll find a better place for me to go and let them have their spot, you know. It's squatters' rights or something like that, you know. But I don't know. I talked to those guys for, man, a few hours last night. It was kind of like, you know, it's just people, you know. They're not going to stab you in the night or something like that. It's a weird problem because, well, it comes back to that whole thing where there isn't a middle class anymore. You know, you got your poor people that have always been poor, and then you got people that probably would have been almost upper end of middle class, and something happened. You know, it could be medical, it could be, you know, you go through a divorce, or somebody dies, or all of a sudden your nest egg is gone, and, you know, your house gets sold or repossessed or something like that, and what do? You know, you're at that age where you probably can't even get a job, or, you know, I don't know what these guys are doing for money, but, you know, they had a little bit of food, so they weren't starving, but, you know, you just kind of get bumped from one place to the next and hope your car doesn't get towed, because then you're really out of luck. Yeah. It's just weird. So it's kind of state of the union right now. And like, okay. And when I'm on the Fringe traveling, like, I looked a little bit for campsites in the area. It'd be $30 or $40 a night out here, it looks like, because there's a park fee and then a camping fee. So it's like you have to pay to get into the park, you know, or have a park pass or something. And I'm like, man, I didn't even look to see what a motel is, but like I don't really want to spend that kind of money right now because I'm trying to have enough when I get home to rebuild some stuff and, you know, start over again. So yeah, I'm trying not to spend a bunch of money on stuff I don't really need. Yeah, anywho. So I think from here for tomorrow, hit the road. And that was the thing, I left this morning by 7 or 7:30. I was trying to get an early start, but I couldn't get any speed up, it seemed like. You know, it's just like I kept getting stuck in traffic and stop and go. It's just annoying. So today or tomorrow now, I'll try to pick a better route so I don't get right down in residential or retail areas so much. And yeah, get back towards, I think once I'm south of Denver, I'll just get back on I-25, Interstate 25, and try to make some miles there. I'm up, I think we're around 6,000 feet again. I'll look it up later, it doesn't really matter, but I think we're higher than Denver now. It's funny, you think Denver, oh, mile high. Well, I live at 4,000 feet, so it's not that big of a deal, you know. And Cheyenne is higher than Denver, but because yesterday I made such good time yesterday because I was going downhill for a long ways. I was really looking good on batteries. So oh yeah, the batteries. So that was kind of one of the things that I left this morning early, so I used more power than I would have, and the sun wasn't shining as because it was too low. You know, it was too early. So I never did really stop and get a good charge. And then you're in the city and you got trees shading half of the road. You know, when you're out on the freeway, you eventually get to the spot where you get a lot more sun shining. So civilization is just, I think that's kind of where I'm at right now. Is my bike is completely optimized for in the wide open spaces. And when I'm cruising on the highway, I know the trailer's back there because you hear it squeaking or whatever. But it's just, you basically can forget it's there, you know. Starting and stopping is where I have trouble with the hitch, and all the little curbs and bumps when you're going across streets and stuff like that, or if you end up stuck on a bike trail, that is just the worst thing on that hitch. So if I can get off of that, get out in the open, I'll be fine. So yeah. Anywho, I'm gonna look up how many miles I got left. I keep forgetting. It's gotta be around 800 now. Or less. Hopefully less. I swear every kid over there has a better bike than I do. The most expensive bicycle I've ever owned was the cheapest one in the bike shop. So yeah, it's still hard to get my head around. But you look over, it's like, I don't know, there's like, man, this is the third or fourth group of a whole bunch of kids coming by. So I don't know if it's like a summer kids program or what's going on, but it's cool. You know, there's a few adults and a bunch of 12 to 16 year olds, I'm going to guess. I'm not really sure. But some of them were, you know, they were on almost an adult sized bike and they looked like the seat was down really low. So they got good bikes. They're not cheap. Wow. Yeah, good for them. They're going to go out and just thrash for 5 miles and probably use as much energy as I do for 50 miles. So, yay, good for you. Anyway, yeah, I got 824 miles left to go home. So, yeah, whatever that means, you know. I figured if it's 800 miles in 50-mile days, that's 16 days. And I've been beating the 50-mile average most of the days. So, a little more than 2 weeks. So today is, what, the 4th or 5th or something like that. So, middle of August we should be home. And a lot of New Mexico is pretty flat, and now with, you know, I've got 2 solar panels and the big motor and the big batteries and the big bike. You know, I didn't have the good bike on that half of the trip last time, so I'm going to basically, from Albuquerque back, I'm going to backtrack the same way I came up. I thought about going a different way just to do something different, but this way I can take advantage of things I've already learned in the area. So, you know, I kind of like, well, I know where the campsites were that had hot showers and, you know, that kind of thing, and plan it out a little bit better. And with how I'm doing the trip now, take advantage of rest areas more than I used to. I did a couple rest areas, but typically I wouldn't camp at them. So if I could make that part of things that I will do, that makes it a little more comfortable, because then you don't, you know, just using a restroom in the morning is nice, and having running water to wash your hands, it means you don't have to carry as much water just to wash up with. So that kind of thing makes a huge difference. Anyway, I think I am done for today, so I'm going to go ahead and edit this video. I can see a cell tower from here. That might mean I have coverage. Also, there's a gas station right across the street that I didn't even think about was there, so I bought a little bit of snacks at the Safeway when I bought some water, but I might walk over there and see what they got. Yeah, make it a night. See if the bike is still charging. It should be. We're getting clouds, though. I don't think it's supposed to rain today. Hopefully not. Yeah, okay. As always, thanks for all the support, and welcome to new subscribers, and hey to all the people I've been meeting at the rest stops and everything lately. And as much as I like doing everything by myself, it's nice knowing I got a crew kind of following along. So thanks. Stay tuned. We'll get there.